Welcome to Retail on the Go, where we explore the dynamic world of self-service commerce. Presented by Cantaloupe, helping the world buy it and go. Today, we're bringing in a few special guests to discuss micromarkets, small businesses, and innovative strategies to accelerate your business. Ready? Let's go.
Welcome back to the Retail on the Go podcast, episode number 3, On Tap, Cold Brew Kiosks, Unlocking the Secrets with Quinn Miller and KVM. We've got 3 guests with us today. We've got Quinn Miller with Blue Agave Vending. We've got O'Neil Sawh with KVM, and we've got Dave Little is also with Cantaloupe. So I'll pass it over to them and let them introduce themselves, give a quick bio. Dave, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks for having me. Dave Little, been with Cantaloupe for the last year since our acquisition from 3 Square Market, but enjoy the time that we've been here. I've been on the market side, residential break room markets, and like I said, just to enjoy being here. Looking forward to talking the talk here.
Absolutely. Quinn?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm the owner operator of Blue Agave Vending. Transitioned into vending about 3 years ago from software sales, enterprise software sales. Now I do some markets, do some KVMs, a little bit of everything. So I've been working with Dave for roughly a year or so now, and it's been a fun little journey so far.
Nice. And Quinn, I do have to ask, how do you go from software sales to vending?
That's a good question. I just saw an opportunity, honestly. I have robust sales experience, so saw an opportunity to kind of just take advantage of that and compete against operators that maybe don't have as much sales experience. And so just use the tools from corporate and just apply them to a niche SMB.
Very nice. Very nice. And then O'Neil?
Hey guys, I'm O'Neil Sawh, the CEO of Dispense Tech 360, the inventor of the KVM, which is a self-serve dispensing, beverage dispensing device.
Very nice. And how long has you had KVM launched?
We launched the KVM about 5 years ago. We've been inventing and building self-serve devices for about 21 years.
Very nice. Very nice. And I know I've talked with you before, O'Neil, but obviously these are self-service. The vending industry as a whole went through COVID. I know y'all did it as well. Do you feel like y'all, obviously it was tough, but y'all come back stronger and you almost see a higher need for these kind of self-dispensing machines?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, after COVID, more and more businesses are looking for ways to have less labor, kind of having self-serve devices really fits the need for reducing labor costs for a lot of these businesses.
Very nice. Very nice. And I know we'll get into it because Quinn, I know you said you have some of the KVMs. And we'll actually start with you, Quinn. I know obviously you've worked with Dave Little even before Cantaloupe acquired 3 Squared Markets and have continued to do so. So I did ask you already, how'd you go from software sales into vending? But what specifically got you into micromarkets?
Yeah, so I kind of view it like sports, right? So like you start with traditional vending, you go buy a vending machine off Craigslist and put it at a hotel or something, right? And that's like high school or whatever. And then you build a little cash flow, foundational cash flow, I should say, that allows you to be able to take bets and invest a little bit more. So then you move on to like smart coolers, right? Where the machine isn't $1,500 or $500 anymore. It's like $5-6 grand, right? So it's kind of got to work out if you really want to scale the thing. So did that, and then moved up to micromarket. So I guess I would classify that more as like, I don't know, college or and then micromarkets as like the NFL, right? So a little bit more moving pieces. You need some foundation. Like I personally think that you need a little bit of like foundation, right? Like a warehouse team. It's not just, hey, go to Sam's Club and get this rock and roll. And I guess you could, But at least for me, that's kind of how I saw it. The micro market's a little more robust build out. The cabinets alone, right, are going to be more than a couple of vending machines. So that's kind of how I see it. And markets, I got into markets because I just saw a need for it on some of the clients that I was serving. So.
Very nice. And then, I know that you've got most of your micro markets, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, in residential type locations.
Yeah.
I know Dave has specifically worked hand in hand with you, and we will have an episode later, like we've talked about, guys, on residential markets specifically. I believe it's episode 6, so make sure you tune back in. But I'll let you and Dave kind of discuss how that came about. I know residential micro markets are kind of a newer concept, and you were kind of early in on that, Quinn. So I'll let you and Dave kind of both answer how have y'all implemented those specifically into residential locations, since that primarily is where your markets are located.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, at least for me, I started traditional vending in multifamily, right? Office, I never saw it as that great of an option, and I think it's partly just because of like where I'm located, California. We have a lot of high rise. We don't have a lot of like big manufacturing and stuff like that, right? And so it's not Texas where there's 1,000 workers at a factory. Like there's not a lot of that. At least what I don't see it. I don't drive by and see it. There's a ton of high rises, so that's kind of where I attacked it. Just so it was simply just meeting, I guess the supply with the demand. So, and then I'll kick it over to Dave. But Dave saw me doing this early, and I think he's kind of implemented it to other markets as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my background before I came to Three Squared and Cantaloupe was in real estate. So I just felt like the kind of combine the two, right? The residential piece has been a kind of a passion of mine to get growing. Quinn took off with it. I came over and helped him install a couple of the markets. And he found a niche. He's got some high rise locations. He's got more coming, and it's just it's an opportunity for it's just a niche that some of the typical break room operators haven't looked at, right? And we felt like it was a great place to go with it. Like I said, it's with Quinn especially. He's got an opportunity in the San Diego area. I feel like in the downtown area, you take LA, San Diego, Los Angeles. Dallas, Texas. I think we've got them going in all over the country now, and it's a good niche that I think is going to grow on and on, especially into this year. So we can. Russ, I don't know. I know we're going to talk about it in another episode, but we've got a development manager that came on board just for that reason. So absolutely.
Yeah. We won't dive too much into the residential, like too deep dive. We got to save that for Murphy and them on that later episode. But appreciate y'all touching on that a little bit.
One of the questions I had for you, a quick question, was just regarding those residential locations. How did you I know we want to kind of step away from that in a moment. I know we have a whole episode dedicated for it. I know Russ is super excited, and Murphy and Dave are to talk about that. But I was just kind of curious, what made you kind of decide one day to kind of put in an unconventional location like that?
You talking to me?
Yes. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. No, okay, so here's the bottom line. So I cold call. Okay, so I don't cold email, none of that stuff, just cold call. Okay, so when you cold call, you got to do a lot of volume, right? And so what I see in sales is time kills deals. So when I go call up, I don't know, let's just say a community college, right? For me to get that deal, it's going to take months. I got to talk to 500 people, and it's just not worth my time, right? So I could cold call a ton of volume, and I could cold call decision makers at these multifamily properties and win the deal. So to me, it was just like, hey, I don't have to talk to that many people, and I can close a deal. Like that's where I'm going to attack.
I love that, using the sales experience, the software sales experience, to go straight into making sure that we can find as many locations as possible. So that's great. So one of the things, and Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, for the next topic, you wanted to shift into kind of our, the discovery of, linking the machines as well as with the markets. Is that correct?
Well, I did want to finish up kind of here with Quinn before we brought O'Neil into it, because obviously
Yeah.
O'Neil and Quinn have worked together on some stuff. Um, you know, Quinn, I think obviously most operators, if they have markets, they know what that traditional setup looks like. Obviously, you've kind of focused on that residential, and again, we'll get into it. But what does that setup process look like compared to more of a traditional break room standard kind of market?
Yeah, I can't speak to the traditional break room, but I kind of modeled mine based off kind of what they look like. So to me, like, and I'll just kind of break it down what that looks like. So it's like, hey, order some cabinetry. Well, first off, like you need to understand how much space you have to work with. A lot of these places they don't have that much
Right.
space, so it's not a break room where I guess unlimited space if you have a ton of employees. So you need to establish that from that standpoint. For me, what I've been doing is a cooler, like a slat wall, so like snacks and pastries, stuff like that, and then a checkout station where I do household, and then we'll slap a camera up on top to record and make sure that nobody's stealing. So that's kind of my setup. I think the next step to it would be like an additional cooler or like a freezer or something like that. But where I would really like to make inroads, and I think where this is where it differs from break rooms, is the household section. And this is super interesting, but it's kind of like there's a lot of testing to it. It's like, so like, hey, do these people like Tide Pods? Do they like, I don't know, paper towels? Do they like toilet paper? Right. So you got to test like millions of different products, not millions, but a lot of different products. But the AOV is much higher. So I think that's where I would like to venture a little bit further. Like, hey, what else can I expand into like outside of the household at these multifamily properties?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're
Hey,
taking in a lot of requests kind of from different, kind of more of the locations themselves, or is it kind of a lot of just kind of tinkering with the formula to try and figure out what works best?
Yeah, so I actually do it the opposite of most people. I do not take any requests.
Okay.
everything
There you
everything is
go.
based off sales data. I'm going to put down a basic product stack of things that I think will sell, and this is generally the big sellers, right? Like the biggest brands you can think of, right? And so if a ton of people are buying Tide Pods and nobody's buying toothpaste, I'm not going to press on the toothpaste anymore. I'm going to put more Tide Pods. And the only reason why I do this is because from my experience, a lot of people tell me a lot of things to do, and at the end of the day, it's all about what is selling, right? People go, hey, put popcorn in there, and then like I'm like, hey, how many times have you used the machine? They're like, never. I'm like, what are you talking about? So that's the only reason why I do it that way.
yeah. I might just add in here too. I think that the products that you put in a residential are, I'm going to touch on the break room between break room and residential, right? The products that you put in a residential are going to be your typical snack items, but you're also going to add in food items that, somebody's in San Diego has just drove in, traffic for an hour to get home. They're not going to want to go back out again, right? To grab a meal or whatever it might be. So you may have some meals that you throw in the microwave, meals maybe that you cook in the oven, something like that that's frozen. You're also going to add in, like you suggested, some toiletry type items. There's going to be items that aren't in a typical break room. Let's be honest, it's just a mix for sure.
And the last thing I wanted to touch on before we bring O'Neil onto the stage and talk with the KVMs and the cold brew kiosks is you were talking about sales data and everything else, and that's what drives your decisions, which is obviously what we like to do here at Cantaloupe with Seed Pro and things. But with those different product sets, would you say that I want to take it back to your sports analogy? You guys had high school, college, and NFL. As with vending, and then you moved into micro markets and things. I guess obviously you do make money in college now if you get an NIL deal, but you make more money as you get along in sports, right? So as you move from vending and micro markets and things, I'm assuming that you don't have to touch on the specifics if you don't want to, but not just the sales and revenues, but also the profits. Would you say you
Yeah,
get higher profits and returns on that compared to traditional vending?
I have some traditional vending machines that do quite well. So they compare some locations, but you need some big locations to be able to do that. What I would say the difference between a micro market and a traditional vending machine is the average order value. So and this all ties back to like the money in the middle, right? So if I sell a 12-ounce soda and it costs me 50 cents to sell for dollar 50, I make a buck, right? Well, if I sell a 20-ounce soda, a sandwich, a bag of chips, and some Tide Pods, the transaction might be I don't know, $25, $30, right? And let's just say, so I'm making $15 in the middle, right? Whatever, hypothetical scenario. So just less transactions are needed to get much higher dollars created. And so that's the standpoint that I like. And I like that you can, like, I'll see transactions where somebody buys like 6 Red Bulls in like one thing, right? He'll just scan like for 6 Red Bulls in a vending machine. That would count as an individual transaction for each one. And so I think that's a little bit unique. From like a profit margin standpoint, there's definitely more like costs involved in the markets. A vending machine, it's you have a credit card reader and that's it, right? Like, but the revenue potential of a market is way more attractive in my opinion. Like if you put it at the right spot, it has potential to do much higher numbers than a vending machine ever will.
Absolutely. And I guess, we'll kind of transition to O'Neil. Obviously, we know that you've used some of the KVMs. I'm assuming in your micro markets, maybe you've got some outside by themselves instead of just in a market. But how have you incorporated those? And then, we'll bring O'Neil in and how y'all got to know each other and how y'all got started together.
Yes. So with the KVMs, which is I call them nitro cold brew coffee kiosks, but they're kegerator vending machines. What they do is they dispense coffee, and I've kind of used them as a Trojan horse per se to talk to these multifamily apartments that when you bring up the word vending or whatever, they kind of shy away. It's kind of has a negative connotation. Just like sales in college, everybody says you shouldn't do it, but the reality is it's great. So that kind of negative connotation. So you kind of lead the coffee, and then you bring in some markets and stuff like that. But we also do coffee just straight up as without the markets involved. And really, it's what I like about it is it's like a bolt on to the market, or it could be a standalone. But I do like the analytics side of things. So you have a screen, you have data coming in, and so it's just like a micro market from that standpoint, except you only have you have one SKU. For me, I just run medium coffee, medium roast coffee. And as you guys know, in these markets, there's a lot of SKUs, right? And so like to me, less SKUs, the better. And especially from a logistics standpoint, any operator, if all they have to do is go pick up a keg of coffee and fill up the machine, like that's pretty sexy. So that's kind of where the attractiveness came from.
Very nice. And O'Neil, if you just want to hop in, kind of give a background. I know you said you've been making products like this for, I think what you said, close to 25, 30 years, but the KVM came around about 5 years ago. Just give a little background on kind of where it came from, why you did it, and then maybe how you met Quinn and have implemented it with him, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, so we came up with the KVM. One of our partners was a big fan of nitro cold brew. This was 5 years ago when we first started the KVM, and him and I were out for lunch one day, and after lunch, he wanted to stop by Starbucks and get cold brew before we headed back to the office. So we did. We went to Starbucks. They didn't have it. That was when they were just making it in small batches, and so if you didn't get there in time, you didn't get any. And he was frustrated, and on the way back to the office, he basically was like, we should just make a cold brew machine. And so we did. We drove back to the office. We got on the whiteboard and wrote down all the things that we thought it needed, all the things that we thought the machine needed to do, all the analytics that we needed to see in order to run a scalable route. And about a year later, after UI, UX, hardware development, we had a couple of working prototypes, and we just started using them. We put them in our very first location in an office building in Miramar in San Diego. We installed that machine, and then we left that site, and as we were driving back to the office, we were looking at our dashboard that shows all of our sales data and inventory data. We were watching it as we were driving back, and it was like $2, $5, $8, $12, and we were like, "Oh man, there's something wrong with the code or the software. It's not supposed to be doing that, And so we turned back around. We drove back to the office, went to their break room, and there was just a line of people at the machine. So it was accurate. That's awesome. It was working. People were just doing sales. We just didn't think it was going to happen that quickly. So
Seemed almost too good to be true.
yeah, exactly. And so then, so we were happy. Obviously, we drove back and talked to the rest of the team. We all kind of were laughing about it, eating lunch while we watched the dashboard. It was a fun day. Um, but that's the quicker version of how it even came around. And so one of the there's probably a couple big advantages to a person or entity that is purchasing a KVM for use of revenue. It's one, a vending operator, traditional vending operator, an entrepreneur, um, you know, and that's kind of the obvious is buy it and then put it out and make money while it vends, right? And then the second way is a lot of the manufacturers that were making nitro cold brew or kombucha or any keg beverage, they would sell an entire keg for example, for $85. And so a keg is five, and this keg that we're talking about is in this example is a 5 gallon keg. So they're selling it at what they used to call retail for $85. And then when our machine came around and we incrementalized the sale or gave the ability to incrementalize the sale, meaning, with our system, you can pour as little or as much as you want, and you only pay for what you pour, like a gas pump works. So when you break down a larger format into smaller formats, generally you get more value out of that. So our national average is 41 cents an ounce. There's 640 ounces in a 5 gallon keg. So our customers, our liquid manufacturing customers, can generate $250 a keg versus $85 a keg. So for the same amount of work, the same cost of goods, they're now, tripling the amount of gross revenue that they were making before. So those are like the real our two biggest customers: vending
No, that
operators and manufacturers of liquid.
no, that's truly amazing. It's kind of different to see on how you can just change something up a little bit, create your own solution, in which turns into liquid gold, basically, in a sense. So no, that's great to hear. And
Yeah, and
I did
Quinn.
love the. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say Quinn is spot on with the Trojan horse concept. So, you know, in the right location with the right demographic, the machines can generate revenue. But in a lot of additional cases, using the KVM as kind of this different thing to pitch into a bid or even keep an existing account has been very well received by our customers. So we have a lot of customers that are winning, you know, 60, 70, $80,000 a year gross revenue, like food accounts and vending accounts and market accounts, by just pitching that they have nitro cold brew kombucha available, pay by the ounce. So it's been very positive from that perspective.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's kind of like almost bringing kind of the Starbucks concept to the consumer and bringing it into their actual home and bringing it to them, which is great to see. A quick question I kind of had for you,
Yeah.
O'Neil, was kind of how did you utilize the technology of the G11 kind of into your keg machine, and how did that kind of come about?
Well, when we were first developing the system, we'd called a couple other manufacturers or providers, I should say, of payment services. They were all kind of hard to work with. When we had called Cantaloupe, it was easy to work with them. It was we had someone we could talk to. We had a rep. We went through the process. It was an easy process, and that's really why we ended up going with Cantaloupe. Why we knew about Cantaloupe is every vending machine I see has a Cantaloupe device on it. So that's why we even knew who to call. So
Right.
Oh, that's great to hear. That's definitely great to hear. And like I said, it's bringing the marriage of a company together. I mean, kind of like how you and Blue Agave are able to use these cold brew machines to bring service your customers. I'm happy we were able to provide that experience for you as well. I mean, one of the next kind of questions that I kind of had for both of you guys was kind of, what opportunity does it bring to traditional vendors? Utilizing your cold brew machines versus just the tradition, moving for operators that are kind of more traditional.
Quinn, do you want to? I mean, you've got machines in the field. Do you want to field that one?
Yeah, for sure.
And one add-on question to that, Quinn, while you're answering that, so if you put a KVM in a market or something, do you have standard like coffee or whatever as another option, or is it one or the other? Do you ever put them together? If you kind of see what I'm asking there.
Yeah. So the opportunity is like, okay, you have a market and it's already doing a bunch of sales. Like, how do you generate more sales? It's like, okay, put better SKUs. Well, now this just gives you another lever to pull. And so, you know, everybody likes coffee. This coffee is way stronger. It's cold brew. So, it, most coffee is like not way better. Like, right. Like most people like Starbucks just because of the name and they're like, oh, okay, this tastes way better. But the reality, it tastes the same in most cases. This is actually like way stronger. So like if you take a sip, you're like, oh wow, this is strong. So the feedback is there immediately. So if you just add it in to an existing account that does a bunch of sales, it just allows you to have another lever to pull. From a hot coffee perspective, I have never dabbled in hot coffee. But that is something that a lot of people like ask about. And my accounts, like there's hot coffee and then nitro cold brew as well. The preference obviously is just to have the nitro cold brew. But you know, a lot of times they'll have existing stuff, and I'm not going to just not win the deal because there's an existing operator in there, and if I were to do that, it might take months for this guy to leave, right? So a lot of times I'll just put it in there alongside it.
I would also add that at the fourth quarter, towards the end of the year this year, the KVMs will also be able to do hot.
Oh, very nice.
Nice. Okay.
I like that. So now you don't. O'Neil's like, obviously we always prefer just the cold brew, but now we'll just do both.
Well,
Yeah.
and the other thing is from what I've seen from Quinn's location is just the appearance wise. You walk in there, it's something different, right? It's something different than you typically see, and it's just even when we were doing the original renderings, I got those back, and I'm like, this looks cool. This is like a cool looking machine that we've got sitting in here. So yeah, I think that adds to it as well.
One thing I would also like kind of just talk about like hot coffee. So the problem with hot coffee is there's a lot of moving pieces in it, right? So it's like the beans, the grinder, the milk, the whatever, the powder. For some reason, whenever I walk in, I always see the things with an out of order sign on it, right? And so these nitro cold brew machines kind of simplify it. Like you just tap a keg, and you're off to the races. And so, like if you have the ability to just provide consistent service, a lot of times that's how you succeed in vending. It's not just like, hey, I'm reinventing the wheel, but like if you can provide coffee for every single day for 365 days, where the Starbucks machine is only provided 150, long term they're going to be like, okay, we want to work with you. Forget the Starbucks machine.
Yeah. Nice. And just to kind of educate people, Quinn, you touched on like service and reliability and things, and you can either touch on it or O'Neil, if you want to. What does it look like for an operator if they're wanting to, what's the maintenance and service like of these machines if they've got a KVM?
Quinn, you want me to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
So general maintenance on the machine, depending on the type of liquid that you're running through it, whether it's like a black coffee or a kombucha that might have a lot of different ingredients in it, can be just a line cleaning every 60 to 90 days, depending on, like I said, what liquid you're running through it. The machine was purposefully built to be as simple as possible, least amount of moving parts to create the highest probability of you like always being on and uptime being high. Generally, you need a Phillips head, a flat head, a pair of pliers. You can replace almost everything on the entire machine with just those tools.
Nice.
Very nice. So easy use.
Yeah.
Now, I take things a little bit further. Like I'll put cups out there. I'll put coffee creamer. Like I'll put like a little stand with a trash can, stuff like that. And I think cups and creamer and stuff like that do increase sales. So I would probably add that from a maintenance perspective because it's an ongoing thing. But from a machine perspective, there's not a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, cups are essential. It's a very key. There's a key difference between sales when you provide cups and when you don't provide cups.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that because I don't, unless I'm, carrying my Stanley around or whatever.
Right.
But no,
Right.
I'd have to have those. And I kind of touched on it at the beginning, but I don't think we heard an answer. So did O'Neil? Did you find Quinn? Quinn, did you find O'Neil, or how'd that come about?
Quinn, I don't remember. We're both in San Diego. I don't even remember,
Yeah,
honestly.
so I bought a Bite smart cooler. It was
Oh
a
yeah,
Bite fridge off
yeah,
O'Neil.
yeah,
He had like a location for sale on OfferUp, and then I bought it off him, and
yeah,
then we just
Nice.
continued talking.
yeah.
Nice.
Very, very nice. I like that. Now, and then I guess, obviously it is changing the way, coffee's done, right? When, as O'Neil said, when Nitro Cold Brew came out at Starbucks, everybody's all excited about it and stuff. And I'll be honest, I do like my cold brew. Quinn, you're right. It hits you harder. It just, you feel it. My recommendation is don't drink too much cold brew because then you'll start shaking a little bit. But nobody needs that much cold brew, especially someone like me. But I do love it. Now, but being able to bring the cold brew into that kind of environment and stuff, how do you see this continuing to change, like the entire coffee services industry, and as well as just the whole self-service micro market thing? Obviously, we see continued differentiated in products. Quinn's basically saying when he's got his residential markets, it's almost like a mini convenience store, right? And now he brought cold brew in, like used to only could get at Starbucks. Where do you see things going? And O'Neil, I don't want you to talk about future products if you don't want to, but obviously y'all been in the game for a long time. But what else do y'all see changing, coffee and self-service industries? Whether y'all are working on it or just think it might happen.
Well, from a future technology updates and things that we think will enhance, the value of nitro cold brew or just cold brew, um, I would say the hot is probably going to be the most cutting edge. So we're just taking the same keg, or what they call bib or bag in the box of liquid, and it's sitting in the refrigerator. It's sitting inside of the kegerator, and it's being heated on demand. So it's coming out at 155 degrees on demand when the customer asks for it hot. Um, from our perspective, in this specific device, the KVM, that is gonna. I mean, we anticipate a minimum of sales at all those machines that have hot to double at a minimum.
I could definitely see that because I'm a cold coffee person, but not everybody is. And
Yeah.
now you have the option of, do you want hot?
Yeah.
Do you want cold? Then yeah, I could definitely see that because
Well, there are also a lot of locations out there, especially residential apartment locations so they've got a hot coffee machine and now they've got a KVM. They don't really want to have both machines, nor do they
Right.
want to have multiple vendors. So we get a lot of like, oh, we'd love to get down to one vendor. We'd love if it was one machine, take up less footprint. Those guys monetize their value on square foot. So the more square feet they take up with just objects, the less they monetize. So it's a really big deal for them to get less space used and the same services happening in less space.
absolutely.
So O'Neil, I have a question on that. Does the looks of the machine change when you do it to hot, or no?
No,
Coming out of the same space.
look, they look exactly the same.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Very cool.
yeah. The design. I mean, it's a little biased for us to say, but the design
Right.
and the look of the machine, we think it looks really nice.
I agree.
It's a,
Yeah.
it's initially why when we go to pitch somebody, cold, we at least get the opportunity to finish the pitch because it looks interesting and unique. And then right after that, as soon as you say a couple of keywords like nitro, cold brew, and kombucha, usually the person you're talking to either likes one of those things or both of those things, and that kind of gets you a little bit more time to finish your pitch. And then usually we get to this point where we can then get it to either a manager or a decision maker to get a yes.
Nice.
So I have I don't know if this will be our final question, it might or might not be, and I'm sure everyone's going to laugh when I ask this, but I know Kylan and I, Dave as well, working with operators around the country, we get a question all the time of, hey, what if do y'all do ID verification or age verification? Because, as COVID changed the laws with alcohol sales and to-go alcohol sales and things like that, people are wanting to get there. And obviously we're not there yet. There are companies that are working on it and things. Cantaloupe technically has a solution in Europe and in the UK that we launched recently. Kylan was there for that. But if I'm an operator and I'm listening to this podcast and I hear Kegerator vending machine, let's be honest, when you hear the word Kegerator, coffee is not the first thing most people think of. So if the laws change, if the technology for ID verification things comes about, is there a world where the Kegerator vending machine that pays by ounce, it's got coffee, kombucha, and then alcohol?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're building 4 units for a customer that has a pub or a handful of pubs, and he's going to be doing beer from it. They're going to be using, in this case, from an ID verification perspective, they're having their bartenders verify the ID, make payment, and we can generate 5-digit codes on our machine that have a value of how many ounces that can be poured, and they're going to give those out, and then the customers are going to use it to fill their own glass. But from an ID verification perspective, yeah, send a device my way. Let's code it in. Let's get it in there.
Right.
I'll let you know when we have it.
Yeah.
Very nice.
He's pumped up, man. He's like, anything. Let's make it work. Let's
go.
do a deal.
Let's do it.
I love it.
Absolutely. I know. You do a coffee happy hours with the Kegerator vending machine. You can do wine happy hours, things like that.
Right.
But
absolutely.
Very nice. Well, Kyle and Dave, you guys have any more questions for Quinn or O'Neil while we got them?
No, I like I said, I've worked with Quinn for quite a while now. O'Neil, we still have some things to talk about in the future here with cabinetry and some other things, but I love it. I think that the Kegerator in general is something unique to the, like I said, my passion is a little bit on the residential side, and I think it's unique to that what Quinn's doing, right? So yeah. I'm good. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys getting on with us for sure.
Oh, appreciate the invite.
No, absolutely. And just to kind of wrap up my last kind of thing for O'Neil was just, man, the first thing I hear from operators when I send out anything regarding your guys' machine is it looks sweet, man. It looks amazing. Nice. It looks clean. Nice. A lot of people really do rave about the way it looks. And, the performance is nothing but positive things as well. So that's a great thing to hear. And
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just kind of regarding to Quinn, I do think it's just a perfect marriage of, you take where the people live, luxury apartments, multifamily homes or whatever the case may be, and you bring coffee to them. I think it's a perfect marriage between you two. So I'm happy to have been on this call and got to hear from you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the time. We really, really appreciate it. Of course, thank you for, O'Neil, your partnership, Quinn, your business, and we look forward to growing with all of y'all. Hope to do continued and more business there. But, I think that's it for this episode of Retail on the Go. We appreciate everybody listening in. Make sure to catch the next episode number 4. But be sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast. Also follow us on Instagram at Retail on the Go and on TikTok at cantaloupe.inc for exclusive content and news. But until next time, we're going to discuss micro-market security and innovative technology around that specifically. But for now, this is Retail on the Go, signing off.
Thank you.